So far in House of the Dragon, 16 Targaryens have appeared on screen. We've heard mentions of 7 more, and we've seen references to 3 others. But it may surprise you to hear that 2 other Targaryens may still be alive during the events of House of the Dragon. The siblings Vaegon and Saera, who live on opposite sides of the world. They'd be King Viserys' uncle and aunt, or Rhaenyra's great-uncle and great-aunt. Of King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne's 13 children, Vaegon was the 7th. Aegon and Daenerys died young, but Vaegon had 2 older brothers and 2 older sisters at the time of his birth. He was very much the spare to Aemon and Balon, the heirs. Nor was he anything like his older brothers. Vaegon was small and quiet, and had no interest in swords or knights. He preferred reading in the library to training in the yard. People at court called him sour. Queen Alysanne arranged hundreds of marriages across Westeros, but had serious trouble finding matches for her younger children, Vaegon, Daella, Saera, and Visera. Gale, the youngest, has a very tragic story, and Alysanne wasn't as concerned with finding her a partner like she was with the other 4. Vaegon was only a year older than Daella, and the 2 siblings were considered an obvious match. Their parents, Jaehaerys and Alysanne, were siblings, and although they had their fair share of marital problems, theirs was one of the most successful marriages in Targaryen history. Their children Balon and Alyssa were a perfect match as well, and were happily married before both of their lives were cut short by tragedy. So Vaegon and Daella were meant to become the 3rd set of Targaryen siblings to marry each other in only 2 generations. When Vaegon was 5, his father told him, "Be sweet to your little sister. One day she will be your Alysanne." Vaegon was not sweet to his little sister. Daella was frightened of Vaegon, and Vaegon thought Daella was dumb. Once, when Vaegon was 10, a lady of the court asked him if he planned to marry Daella. His response? "I would never marry her. She can barely read. She should find some lord in need of stupid children, for that's the only sort he will ever have of her." Daella ran away crying, so their sister Alyssa poured wine over Vaegon's head. All he had to say was, "You are wasting Arbor gold." King Jaehaerys wasn't worried about Vaegon's lack of interest in women. After all, he was only 10. Jaehaerys said, "He is comely enough, and a prince of Westeros, 3rd in line to the Iron Throne. In a few more years, maidens will be fluttering around him like butterflies, and blushing if he deigns to look their way." Alysanne said, "I fear for any butterfly that comes fluttering around Vaegon. He is like to squash it flat beneath a book." The king decided that Vaegon needed to spend some time learning how to fight. He made Balon practice swordplay with Vaegon for an entire year, and he hated it. Vaegon was miserable, and he made all those around him miserable as well, even Balon the Brave. Finally, Balon gave Alyssa a sword, and their sister humiliated Vaegon in front of everyone. That was likely the last time Vaegon ever wielded a blade. He probably wouldn't have wanted one, but Vaegon was not given a dragon. An egg was not placed in his cradle, and he never claimed one during his youth. Aemon rode Caraxes, Balon rode Vhagar, and Alyssa rode Meleys. Perhaps 3 was the cutoff point for how many of his children Jaehaerys wanted to give dragons to. Limiting dragon riders would have been a smart idea for Viserys too, by the way. As his heir, Rhaenyra was right to have one, and Daemon already had one. Letting Laenor and Laena have dragons was a bit risky, since they were the first non-Targaryen dragon riders. But Viserys probably wanted to appease Rhaenys by letting her children claim dragons. After all, she probably should have been the queen. Vizzy's big mistake was letting all of his children with Alicent have dragons. Bro knew he was defying tradition by making Rhaenyra his heir, but he hardly did anything to mend the feud between the Greens and the Blacks. If Aegon and Aemon didn't have dragons, the Greens wouldn't even think about war. The smartest option would have been to only let Rhaenyra have a dragon, but Viserys never quite opted for the smartest option. Wait, I'm supposed to be talking about his uncle. As Vaegon entered his teen years, Jaehaerys turned out to be correct. Women did start to flirt with Vaegon, and he took no interest in any of them. He spent his time reading and learning about history, cartography, mathematics, and languages. The Grand Maester even slipped in a book of erotic drawings, hoping it would convince Vaegon that sex was real. He kept the book, but denied the sex. In 78 AC, when Vaegon was 15 and nearly an adult, Jaehaerys asked the Grand Maester if Vaegon might become a maester, and Elisar said no. Maesters need social skills. They have to teach children, treat the wounded, and do diplomacy via ravens. Vaegon couldn't be a maester, but he could become an archmaester. Instead of working in a castle, Vaegon could spend his days learning and reading at the citadel of Oldtown. When Jaehaerys told him, Vaegon responded, "Yes, father. Good." And the king even thought he saw Vaegon smile. The prologue of House of the Dragon takes place at the Great Council of 101 AC, where King Jaehaerys lets the realm decide who should be his heir. In the books, Jaehaerys actually called Vaegon to visit him from the citadel. Some say that Jaehaerys straight up offered the throne to Vaegon, and Vaegon refused in order to keep his vows as a maester. If this is true, his story parallels with Maester Aemon. Both Targaryens were far down in the succession when they chose to become maesters. Vaegon was 4th in line, and Aemon might have been as low as 10th in line, but family tragedies propelled both of them to becoming king if they wanted it. Instead of accepting the throne, Vaegon told his father to call a great council and avoid violence between claimants to the throne. In 101 AC, Vaegon was only 38 years old, but after the Great Council, he fades away from the story and is never mentioned again. Presumably, he keeps himself hidden away at the Citadel, doing what he loves best, reading and learning. In 129 AC, when the Dance of the Dragons begins, Vaegon would be 66, younger than Corlys Velaryon, for example. Fire and Blood ends in 136 AC, when Vaegon would be 73, so his later years might be covered in Fire and Blood Volume 2, whenever George R.R. Martin gets around to writing that. There is almost no chance House of the Dragon will include Vaegon, but there is another Targaryen in Oldtown at this time. Daemon, the youngest brother of King Aegon. He's being fostered by the Hightowers, and while we probably won't see him until Season 3, George R.R. Martin and Ryan Condal confirmed he exists in the show, and we see his blood trail thing in the intro. Also, Olivia Cook mentioned him in an interview.
Aemon, and there's a Daemon that we've not mentioned in Season 1, but he does exist apparently.
So there is a remote possibility Daemon visits his great-uncle Vaegon Targaryen, archmaester of the Citadel. What might they have to say to each other? Vaegon the Dragonless was uninterested in his Valyrian heritage, or the might of his house, whereas Daemon loves Targaryen, his Blue Queen, and risks his life fighting on behalf of his family. Their temperaments are polar opposites, as far as we know. So maybe Vaegon would have some sort of cautionary advice for young Daemon, along the lines of what Rhaenyra says in episode 10.
When dragons flew to war, everything burned.
More likely, Vaegon just wants to be left alone. Princess Saera was the 9th child of King Jaehaerys and Queen Alysanne, 4 years younger than Vaegon. Saera was a very difficult child. She was tempestuous, demanding, and disobedient. The first word she spoke was no, and she said it often and loudly. This behavior continued as she grew, being described as fierce, stubborn, and attention-seeking. When Saera was a child, she felt ignored by her giant family, which might explain her poor behavior. Fire and Blood says that Aemon would be king, Balon would be his hand, Alyssa would be the next Alysanne, Vaegon was more educated, and Daella was in constant need of comfort. So Saera felt left out. Saera got up to all kinds of cruel hijinks. Her sister Daella was terrified of cats and bees, so Saera filled her bedroom with cats, and her chamber pot with bees. She stole all the white cloaks of the Kingsguard and dyed them pink, and routinely stole treats and alcohol from the kitchens, arriving drunk to her lessons with her septa by the age of 12. Once, she took advantage of the court fool, Tom Turnip, who was intellectually disabled. She convinced him to dance naked at a feast attended by great lords, and even worse, she told him that if he climbed the Iron Throne, he could be king. Tom Turnip was clumsy, and sliced open his arms and legs on the throne. Saera's septa called her an evil child. After briefly being considered a match for her brother Vaegon, Saera got into the worst trouble of her life in 84 AC at the age of 17. She became close friends with 3 young lords, Jonah Mouton, Roy Connington, and Braxton Beesbury, the worst of the 3. One night in a brothel, Saera wanted to see Tom Turnip have sex with a prostitute. He ran away screaming, and when she was brought before King Jaehaerys on the Iron Throne, Saera said, "He is a fool. Fools are meant to be laughed at. Where is the harm in that? Turnip loves it when you laugh at him." But Saera was actually there to answer for far more serious crimes. Her friends had already confessed to the devious behavior they got up to, all at Saera's suggestion. She exhausted herself trying to act innocent, until her father asked, "What have you done? Have you given one of these boys your maidenhead?" Saera said, "No, I gave it to all 3. They all think they were the first. Boys are such silly fools." To make things right, Saera said she could marry any of them, or even all 3 of them. Why should I have just one husband? The Conqueror had 2 wives, and Maegor had 6 or 8. That was possibly the worst thing she could have said to King Jaehaerys, whose 2 older brothers were both killed by Maegor, and his older sister Rhaenyra was forcefully wed to Maegor, and Jaehaerys himself probably lived his childhood in fear of his uncle until he finally took the throne. Jonah Mouton agreed to marry Perianne Moore, one of the girls Saera corrupted. Roy Connington refused to marry Alice Turnberry, who was pregnant with Braxton Beesbury's bastard, so Connington took 10 years of exile instead. Beesbury was given the choice of losing his tongue and nose, and getting all his arms and legs broken, or trial by combat. He chose trial by combat, but to everyone's surprise, King Jaehaerys himself, at the age of 49, fought Braxton Beesbury, who was 19. Jaehaerys put Blackfire through Beesbury's eye. Saera tried to escape the city and steal a dragon.
"Stop right there, criminal scum!"
But the dragon keepers caught her before she could. So Saera was sent to Oldtown to become a septa, just like her older sister Maegella. Secretly, Jaehaerys was still going to go easy on her. Just make her spend a few quiet years in contemplation, but not actually become a silent sister. But Saera was a rogue, and after a year and a half in Oldtown, she fled across the narrow sea to Lys, where she was noticed in a pleasure house. Queen Alysanne said, "They have made our daughter into a whore," but King Jaehaerys said, "She always was." Against the king's orders, Alysanne sent guards to secretly watch over Saera and protect her. After losing 3 daughters in 5 years, Alyssa, Daella, and Visera, Queen Alysanne begged Jaehaerys to let Saera come home, but he refused. Jaehaerys gives a whole monologue to Alysanne that I think is really well written, so I'll quote the whole passage here. "We have been together since we were children. I know you as well as you know me. Right now, you are thinking that you do not need my leave to bring her home, that you can take Silverwing and fly to Lys yourself. What would you do then? Visit her in her pleasure garden? Do you imagine she will fly into your arms and beg forgiveness? She is more like to slap your face. And what will the Lyseni do if you try and make off with one of their whores? She has value to them. How much do you think it costs to lay with a Targaryen princess? At best, they will demand a ransom for her. At worst, they may decide to keep you too. What will you do then? Shout for Silverwing to burn their city down? Would you have me send Aemon and Balon with an army to see if they can prize her free? You want her, yes, I hear you. You need her, but she does not need you, or me, or Westeros. She is dead. Bury her." I think this passage really sums up how Jaehaerys could tear away his fatherly affection for his daughter to see the legitimate, pragmatic reasons to not build a bridge with Saera. This is the ultimate example of how Jaehaerys was an intelligent ruler, but a very poor father to his daughters. After she amassed fame and wealth, Saera moved to Volantis and opened her own brothel. At the Great Council of 101 AC, Saera was 34, and stayed in the east instead of pressing her claim for the throne. "I have my own kingdom here," she said. Saera had 3 bastard sons though, one of them fathered by a triarch of Old Volantis, and one who was the spitting image of Jaehaerys in his youth. All 3 went to Harrenhal and put forward their claims, and all 3 were denied. On his deathbed, King Jaehaerys mistook Alicent Hightower for Saera, thinking she'd finally come home to see him. So by the time of the Dance of the Dragons, Saera would be 62, probably living a happy life in a mansion in Volantis, wanting nothing to do with her family drama. After Daemon married Rhaenyra, they took a vacation in Pentos. In the books, they went all over Essos, including Volantis. Maybe Daemon found his Aunt Saera there, and talked through their angst towards their family. Saera had a king for a father who neglected her, and Daemon a king for a brother who he felt neglected him.
10 years!
So if these Targaryen siblings are still alive, Vaegon is 66 in Oldtown, and Saera is 62 in Volantis. They were both confirmed to be alive at the Great Council, and may or may not still be alive during Season 2. Let me know in the comments if you think we'll see Vaegon or Saera in House of the Dragon, or at least hear mention of them. Thanks for watching and subscribing.